Hello, Julius. It is nice to see you today. How are you?
I'm fantastic. It's great to be with you too, Liv. Good to see you.
Perfect. Okay, so we are going to kick it off. Um, Everyone, today we have Julius B. Anthony, who is the founder and president of St. Louis Black Authors of Children's Literature. And in a moment, I'm going to have him introduce himself a little bit more. But first, I want to start off with your why. In a few words and sentences, how has being an entrepreneur changed your life?
Oh, it's changed my life tremendously. Um, I would say that for me, it's been transformational. It's really helped me to um, know my purpose. It's really helped me to gain the reason why I think I wake up every day and really have a reason for being. Prior to becoming an entrepreneur, I think I just had a job and was working in education and just trying to do my best in terms of what I thought my purpose was. But after becoming an entrepreneur, I think I know that in a more deeper and meaningful way. So,
Mm.
yeah, um, it's been life changing, transformational for me.
Thank you for kicking that off. So I introduced you briefly, but can you share a little bit more about yourself and your venture and why you chose to pursue being your own boss?
Yeah, as you said, my company is St. Louis Black Authors of Children's Literature. We're a nonprofit. Our core program, our initiative is the Believe Projects. And our core goal is to ensure that all children are confident and competent readers by the end of third grade. And that's important to us. It's just based on the body of research that suggests when children are on or above grade level and reading by the end of third grade, they do better in school. Now, in terms of my why, I came to form this company really after not having a job. So I came to this point in my career where I decided not to go back into a formal educational setting. And I decided to write a children's book. It just occurred to me one day that I had written all these poems. I was a first grade teacher at one point, and I was a principal, and I used to write these affirmational poems and sayings for my kids because I wanted to start the day making sure that they had really powerful things that they could recite and say that will get them ready for the learning for the day. And so one day I was kind of feeling not sure of myself. And as someone who has been in early childhood education and elementary ed, I knew that children's books were things that you could read that would motivate you and inspire you. So I was reading some books, and I said to myself, well, hey, I could do this. This is something I can do. And so I decided to take my poems and put them in a book. And then I started thinking about looking at why Black children and my own experience as a Black male educator and what that experience was like for me in terms of just literacy, and thinking about all the children that I had taught and all the children that I had had experiences with, and then started looking at the data and what the data said about Black children just locally in St. Louis. And I found out that 75% of most Black children at the end of third grade actually failed in literacy. And I knew it was a challenge because I had the privilege of teaching not just in communities of poverty, but also in communities where children were really excelling or were well-resourced schools. And so these were children that came from families that were middle income and upper income families. And it seemed like it didn't matter what their socioeconomic background was. Black children seemed to struggle when it came to literacy. And then I thought about this in terms of just St. Louis. I thought about my parents. And I thought about all of those great people that raised me and that were part of the communities that I came from. And most of those people were part of the Great Migration. Those were people that came from the Deep South, that were part of the Jim Crow era. And they had the courage to leave those communities, to travel from the Deep South to destination cities like a St. Louis so that they could have a better day and so that they could create a better day for their families and for their children. As a matter of fact, most of the Blacks in St. Louis, that's how they became part of St. Louis. That's how St. Louis grew a large Black community. It was because of the Great Black Migration. And so when we think about the Black migration in St. Louis began in the early 1900s, and here it was in the 2000s, and we still had Black children and Black people not fully literate, that bothered me. That disturbed me. And I said to myself, I had to do something about that. And so essentially, that's why I created this product, this organization, to really do something about it. Because I said, if I didn't do it, who was? And so I created St. Louis Black Authors of Children's Literature. And here we are, the Believe Projects. I know that was long, but that's why I did. That's my why.
No, I love that. Thank you. Thank you for kicking it off. And like tied into that, there was pieces of your story, pieces of legacy, pieces of who comes after, what we come from. So thanks for sharing your why and why you're here today. So you actually just touched on this a little bit, but what life experiences propelled you into the entrepreneurial space and eventually led to the founding of your venture? If you want to expand deeper into it.
Yeah, and so it's this, and I'm going to talk about St. Louis, and then I'm going to relate that to the national issue. And so when we think about Black people and where they are, and just their ability to move themselves forward in this country, and St. Louis is a hyper-racial city. There is nothing that happens in St. Louis that is where there is no consideration of race. Everything that happens in our city, there is a consideration of race. St. Louis is a place where Black people live on one side of the city and white people live on the other. It was that way when the city was founded, and it remains that way today. And when we consider what just the facts are, what research says that when you are fully literate, then you have a better chance to navigate life and to navigate adult life. And research also suggests that third grade reading is the marker. It is the highest predictor of your ability to have a fully flourishing adult life. And if in St. Louis annually 75 to 86% of Black children are failing at third grade, what does that say? And on a national level, when we look at the national research at fourth grade reading scores, and this is coming from the National Assessment of Educational Progress, Black children are failing at 85% annually. So what does that say for us as a people in this country? That something has to be done about that. And so that's why I do the work that I do. Yes, if we are going to change this has to happen at the education level where we are working with children in third and fourth grade at the literacy level. And this is why we have to do it at that level, because it doesn't matter what socioeconomic background they come from, according to the research. That Black children that are going to schools that are highly resourced, Black children that are coming from middle income families are struggling with reading. But the research also suggests that when Black children, Latinx children, and Indigenous children have opportunities to see themselves in the learning experience, when they have opportunities to experience texts that connect to their experience, their stories, when they become the protagonists, the heroes in the literacy process, they do better in school. And so that's what my company is all about. That's what we're pushing. And that's why I do the work that I do.
Beautiful. I love it. I love it. Okay, so kind of switching the trajectory of what we're talking about, but what has been the biggest challenge for you as an entrepreneur and founder, and how have you overcome those challenges?
Fear. And fear manifests itself for me in many different kinds of ways. Fear can manifest itself for me in just getting in front of a whole group of people and being able to just articulate to them my thoughts, my feelings, and why I do what I do, or try to convince. Sometimes I'm shaking in my boots before I have to get up in front of a crowd. So just getting over things like that, the fear of raising money, the fear of being responsible for a group of people who are going to work with you and their livelihood, because you got to pay them a salary to stay with you and to be committed to you. The fear of feeling like, are you credentialed enough to do this work? Because we're in education, and education has this culture of you got to have all these alphabets behind your name. You got to have all these credentialing. The fear of that, the fear of, are you enough to do this work and to be in this space? So yeah, fear is my biggest challenger. And for me, it's not the knowledge. It's not really, do I want to do it? It's really getting over this sense of fear, waking up and saying, yes, get yourself out there and do it no matter what. No matter what someone else might say and all of that. The fear is my challenge. And so how do I get over that? I think was your other question.
Yes. Yeah.
I do it like this. So for me, it starts with my spiritual grounding, my spiritual compass. I recognize and understand that there's a power that's greater than me. And so I have to rely on that first. And I have to say to myself every day and feed myself all the good spiritual things that I know to be true. That I am not of myself, that there is something that called me to this experience, and it is that source that is calling me to do the work. So I start there. Then I surround myself with people who are positive and bringing forth positive energy. I stay away from negativity and negative people. If any kind of negative people or energy starts coming my way, I go in the other direction. The other thing, I stay in my lane. I don't worry about what other people are doing or what some other business is doing or how far they're getting along, or if somebody is doing some of the same work that I'm doing. I don't worry about them. I just worry about what I'm supposed to do and how I'm supposed to do it, and bringing quality in terms of what I do. And then I make sure that I have some kind of quiet time and meditative practice, something to center me. So I listen to good music, I read good things, I feed my body and my spirit. I exercise, I eat, try to eat it as best I can. Sometimes the chocolate chip cookies get me. Right, but I do my best, to try to eat the right things. And that's how you do it. That's how I try to overcome fear. And I'll tell you another thing, and we probably will get into this later. Camelback has really been good in terms of helping me to build community. And at some point we might talk about that, but that has been one of the greatest ways for me to gain the courage to continue this work. So I'll wait till you ask that question.
I want to double back on something that you said, though. You said you stay in your lane, which I think is really important in regards to, I always highlight the quote, comparison is the thief of joy, in regards to focusing on what you're here to do and what gifts you have. So I didn't know I was going to church with you today, Julius. So the next question actually is, what advice would you share with your younger self about becoming a founder?
Oh, that's good. I would say hold on to your differentness. I was a different kid, the kid that liked to twirl around. Everything about me was different. So I was a kid that when, your parents said, I need you to walk down the street, I was like, oh, I feel like skipping today.
Love it.
Or if your parents said, I need you to put on black pants, I would say, oh, I want green. So, so I was that kid. And I have found in my adult life, and particularly as an entrepreneur, innovation, creativity, and differentness is a winner.
Mm.
It's a winner. Those are the people who excel in business. And I have found out in my short time as a business person, that's why I have been winning. People want our product because we're different.
Mm.
And we bring high quality with our differentness. And when I really think about it, throughout my entire professional career, it has been that case. And I believe that that's why I rose so fast in my career. And really without the credentialing, without those letters, it's because I have always been creative and innovative. And a lot of people aren't that way. They just go with the regular old. And so that's what I would say to my younger self. Hold on to it. Don't let people laugh and shame you out of it. Keep it. Because it's going to be something that helps you to win one day.
I love that. Thank you for that reminder. So we're going back to the question that I think you were about to get into, but how has the Camelback Fellowship supported your growth as a founder?
It's changed my life. It has really turned me into an entrepreneur, to be honest with you. I didn't see myself as one prior to the Camelback experience.
Mm.
Yes, I had a business license. Yes, I had the business card that said I was president of a company. But I didn't feel like I showed up in the world fully as a business person until I had the Camelback experience. And so the two C's that I always say that Camelback fully gave me was courage and community. Yes, they gave me curriculum and capital. They gave me those two things, but the real thing they gave me was courage and community. Courage in the sense that after having that transformational experience, it was something in the middle of that experience. And I really can't tell you when it hit me or when it switched, but it was somewhere along the lines, and I'm about to get emotional. We're not supposed to cry on these things, are we? But it was a transformational experience for me, because I went to Camelback not believing that I was worthy of being of doing the work that I was doing.
Mm.
And I think it was something Riaz said to me.
Take your time.
Yeah. And he said to me, you are just as worthy and you have just as much experience and knowledge
Mm.
to do this work as anybody else. And just him saying that, and he not only said that, the whole experience said that to me. And I believed it after that. I didn't really believe it before that. And so I left that place believing I was an entrepreneur. And then I gained these wonderful group of friends, these beautiful people who we still talk to each other now. We've been planning, we talk to each other every month by Zoom, and we always try to plan some opportunity to get together. And we've actually traveled to see each other at different points over this past year. And I call them when I need to call them. And I won't call names because they may watch this. But there's a couple I call all the time or text. And they're just people I can call and lean on when I need somebody to talk to.
Mm.
So that community has been really important to me because being an entrepreneur can be a lonely space and a lonely journey because everybody doesn't really understand sometimes what you're dealing with and the kind of people you have to deal with as you do this work. And the people in this group, they get it. So, yeah, I'll stop there.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing all of that. And just being like super honest about what was transformational for you and what still carries you today from that experience. Yeah, that was beautiful. Thanks, Julius.
Thank you.
Okay, so what is next for your venture in 2023 and beyond?
We really have some exciting things ahead. We're growing. Um, our core project is the Believe Project, where we build these literacy lab spaces in schools. And this year, we just opened our 10th lab, and we're just incredibly just excited about that, especially when my dream was only to open one. And here we are, three, really, I say it's 3 years later, it's actually four. And I say it's three because of COVID. But here we are with 10, but just four, and 10 in 4 years. And without anybody ever having known us, prior to that. So we just opened our 10th. We are expected to open three more over this next year, and not just those three. We're about to move into a retail space. And so there's a retail store that has asked us to join them. And this is a store that really tries to market to millennials and Gen Z consumers, which is basically parents of today. And so they're giving us a space right at the front of the store. And the front of the store has these windows. And so they want us to build our space right at the front with our murals and art and all of that kind of stuff. So we're super excited about that because I never thought about going into any kind of retail or doing anything like that for the Believe Project. So we're excited about that. And then we're also open to early childhood preschool spaces this year. And we had never done or considered doing early childhood. So these will be Head Start programs, which will also give us an opportunity to now factor in early learning with parents, infant and toddlers, as well as 3 and 4-year-olds, and getting them kindergarten ready before they go to the school age. So we're really excited. And building partnerships with the local, I should say this too, one of our local theater companies that does children's literature. So we have this cadre of authors, and we're looking at taking their books and actually turning it into live theater as a way of deepening and being meaningful for our children around literacy experiences. So we're looking into moving into that area as well.
So many exciting things.
Yeah.
I look forward to hearing all about it and watching the next part of your journey. That
Absolutely.
is so cool.
We'll send you some merch.
Yes. And I'm interested in the theater performances too. I think that there would be many people that would be interested in that as well. That's so awesome.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool. So we're almost done, but let's talk about your legacy, which you started talking about at the beginning. How do you hope your venture changes the world for the better?
I hope, at least in this way, I hope that my legacy first broadens the perspective of how we see literacy. That's the first, and how we define it. And so currently in our community as educators, we mostly see literacy as reading and writing. But literacy is bigger than that. And that's the only way we tend to try to assess literacy and a student's sort of like competencies around literacy. But we know that literacy is more than that. Literacy is listening, is visual expression. And there are many pathways to literacy, and we tend to only look at one pathway, which is through text. And so there are other pathways like dancing and drawing, illustrations, art. There's music, there's singing, there's comedic, being a comedian. All of that is literacy. Literacy is all around you. It's just about how we tell stories and communicate with the world. And so that's what our project is attempting to do for children of color, because that's how they're socialized into literacy, because that's what happens for them at home and outside of the school. And they tend to be very competent in those ways. And so I'm hoping that that is my legacy, that it is at least the beginning of that process. And that my legacy also includes this notion that there is this science that's called the affective approach toward literacy development, meaning that there's a social and an emotional piece to how children learn, that is not all cognitive, and that in order for children of color to effectively learn, you have to approach them from the heart first, from the emotional and social first, and connect that then to the intellectual and the cognitive. And until you bridge the two, there is no success for them in school. There will be none. They won't achieve on those tests. And so until we get that part right. And so that's what I hope my legacy is, and that there is a quick move toward fulfilling the dreams of all of those wonderful Black people that migrated from the South. Ultimately, that is what I hope my legacy is.
Thank you. That was beautiful. What's the best piece of advice you've received on your entrepreneurial journey?
It's the advice that I give to everyone who asks me about becoming an entrepreneur. First, be very clear on your why, and know your end game. What is it that you're trying to achieve? And focus in on that one thing. And notice I said one, not 20, not even 2 or 3, just one thing. What's the one main thing you want to achieve? That's the best advice that I can give, because I believe that that's what has really helped us to clearly articulate to our funders and the people in our community what we are attempting to do. Because I can say to them, 3rd grade reading success is my one goal, it's easy for them to digest and swallow it. But if I tell them it's 3rd grade, and it's this, and it's that, and it's this, they're like, huh? And how are you going to achieve all of that? How are you going to measure all of that? So my best advice is, what's your end game? And what's that one main thing? Now, you can do all these, you can find all these wonderful ways to get there, but have one end game. What's that one thing you want to achieve? That's my best advice.
Powerful way to close this out. Thank you for sharing all of your wisdom today. But before we close out, finally, how can people connect with you to learn more?
Sure. You can find us online at stlblackauthors.com. We're also on Facebook at St. Louis Black Authors of Children's Literature. We're on LinkedIn at St. Louis Black Authors of Children's Literature. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Julius B. Anthony. And we're on Instagram at STL Black Author.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Julius, for sharing your time today and your journey.
You made me cry, so it must have been good.
Thank you. That was beautiful.
Thank you.